I'm Michael Krieger, the Director of Photography for Grim Whimsy. Grim Whimsy does fit in a kind of genre of filmmaking. It's a suspense thriller with a protagonist trying to solve a mystery that is set up by an antagonist who's disrupting their life and trying to get through layers of mystery to solve the crime or figure out the mystery. It fits within a certain type or a kind of certain genre of a film. I think being from a director or a writer who's thinking about it in perhaps a slightly non-traditional way, or approaching the material in a different, having a different approach to it than might be traditionally done, brings us a different way of looking at familiar material with perhaps a sense of sympathy or attempt to kind of understand their motivations or their complexity of their character, more than just a kind of contrivance to allow the protagonist to go over hurdles to solve the mystery. As a character with a past, a complexity up to themselves beyond just their function on a plot level. I think what may distinguish Grim Whimsy from other things I've worked on other similar kind of smaller budget, smaller scale projects. Actually, a lot of the credit goes to Alissa for, I think, good qualities as a producer, as a director, is really knowing what she wants and being willing to take the time, take the effort to get it in terms of locations, in terms of finding locations that work, that are right for what we need, getting things the way she wants and not giving up, not giving in and saying, okay, well, never mind, we're not going to do that. It doesn't work. You can work on things where you should have a warehouse and someone will say, well, we'll just shoot in my friend's basement. So it's fine. Like they'll let us shoot there, and you're like, but it's a basement. Like it's a tiny basement. We need a big space. And then you fight the restrictions of your budget, of the commitment of the director, frankly, the commitment of the filmmakers. And I think Alissa was great at not giving in to things to make it easier, just to get it done. Kind of projects like this will often, especially particularly in the kind of art department part of the film, really suffer because there isn't an art department, or the director doesn't understand props and art department things, or isn't willing to take the time to dress sets appropriately, or find the right props, or find the right set dressing, and the film suffers because it's not what it should be. Yeah, to her credit, I think Alissa really, and Chris also as well, spent so much time dressing sets, finding the right locations, thinking about how a set or how a location should look. And I think that level of commitment and that level of attention to detail, attention to visual detail, attention to the kind of fabric, the visual fabric of the film, of the world, I think really brings Grim Whimsy to a level where projects on a similar scale often don't reach, because they just are hampered by the restrictions of the resources, or the restrictions of the commitment of the filmmakers. When I think about the locations we have, I think there's two that kind of stand out as locations that I felt really good about, or that I felt turned out pretty well, or I was really happy with kind of how we were able to make them look. One was the first scene, or one of the very first scenes in the film, where Trixie is getting ready, and there's newspaper clippings and stuff on the wall, and we shot that in a room in a kind of haunted house place outside of town. And I remember thinking when we set that up, we were shooting in lighting, and I set up some lights that I felt like it looked really good. I was like, wow, this turned out really well. Or like this particular shot of this angle, or just this background, just looked really good. And there's a thing I have when I think you're always kind of tough on your own work, or you see the flaws in your own work, or you see where you made mistakes, or you see where you didn't get something right. Whereas other people may look at something and think it looks great, and you say, well, that thing there is bad. So a way I find myself thinking is when shooting or lighting something, looking through the camera, looking at the monitor, I'll think, when I feel good about it, I think like, wow, this really looks like a movie. Like this right here, like, oh, it looks like a real movie. I think the other location that I felt really good about was Johnny's apartment, where we luckily had kind of free reign. We had little restrictions from the location owners, from the property owners. They let us just basically move in and take over and film as long as we needed to. So we were lucky to have that. That was a great location. And I think the way it worked with the scene, the way it worked with the way that scene or those scenes were written, it was a great location for that. And it just had the right look. And Alissa and Chris dressed it really well, and it fit well. And the way the windows were, and enabled me to light it or light it in a way that I was really kind of happy with. Having windows covered with bits of light coming through, bringing in atmosphere, bringing in haze. I think I was really happy with how that kind of turned out, and working at a kind of really low light levels for some of that worked well and kind of did what I wanted to do, or it kind of turned out how I wanted to. See, I think those two locations were the most I felt the best about, and that I was the happiest with. With anything you're doing, I think any kind of making a film or making any kind of work of art or anything you're creating to express yourself, to address themes or ideas, I think you always hope it has some kind of timelessness to it, that it's not limited to the exact time you made it, or a very narrow or specific audience or time in history. I think you're always hoping it has some lasting relevance, some appeal or relevance to an audience for a long lasting time. It's not gonna wear itself out really quick. And I hope that's the case with Grim Whimsy. It's hard to say, but I think that's always something you're striving for.